Hey everybody, welcome to the Record Volume once again. We're really excited to talk more about microphones. We're going to get into them in a big, deep way. It's going to be amazing. We're going to listen to microphones that you've probably never heard before and certainly never heard A, B, C, D all together. And we're going to talk about theory. We're going to talk about how they work. We're going to show you how you can use them best to get great recordings on your sets and in your productions. It's going to be awesome. Let's roll. Now, 2001 is, back in the day, a complete leap forward in audio, and obviously one of the first feature-length sci-fi movies to ever be made. But in this case, they believed that there was no sound in space. They believed it correctly, but unfortunately decided to do the film that way, which now we wouldn't even dream of doing. But what they did, which is super smart, is they decided to insert one of the most famous waltzes of all time as the background. And it's a beautiful piece by our man Strauss. I'm not totally sure what it has to do with space, but now, of course, it's vernacular. You hear this and you think 2001, just like also Sprach Zarathustra does for 2001, the big organ piece, and with the trumpets and stuff. Anyway, take a listen to this and see how it feels. No sound effects, no ADR, no dialogue, no nothing, just music. And here comes everybody's favorite melody and product placement. One of the good things about putting music in a scene like this that's super slow is the nature of time compression in music, which we'll tell you about in the music section. But otherwise, this scene would be unescapably boring, even though it's visually beautiful. Even in the 60s, this would be really, really hard to watch without music. Certainly without any sound. We love talking about microphones here on Cinema Sound. We love it. We talk about all kinds of microphones, and we focus specifically on Saramonic microphones, not because they're the most expensive or the best microphones, and not because they're the cheapest. I mean, I personally believe they bring the most value to the independent media creative, but because as we're trying to bring education to the independent media creative about how to get Hollywood production value and immersion, Saramonic microphones help us to bring those points to you as easily as possible. They're really set up to support the independent filmmaker, and for us in the education process, they're prime. And like I said, for me, I think they're a fantastic value, maybe even the best value in many disciplines. But I just don't want you to feel like we're just highlighting Saramonic microphones because you should go buy them right now. That's not it at all. We want you to get the maximum value for education out of this course, and Saramonic helps us most with that. Where do microphones come from? Where did they originally come from? Well, from under a rock, like everything else. And in World War II, the minds of the Germans realized they needed a way to manipulate the minds of all the other Germans and everyone else at one time. One speaker being able to speak to tens of thousands of people once they gathered. Now, they didn't have television and broadcast back then, obviously, in the way that we have it now. So once they created an event where they had tens of thousands of people, they needed to be able to have the voice of one person be able to be heard by all. And they created what's called the public address system, or what you know as the PA system. And the most basic public address system includes a microphone, an amplifier, and a speaker. Now, obviously, to get to tens of thousands of people, you have to have an array of speakers. But how does a microphone work? Pretty simple. The sound pressure waves from the air go past that windscreen looking thing and hit the diaphragm. And the diaphragm is very sensitive, moves back and forth very quickly. Attached to the diaphragm are these little copper rod looking things. These are all technical terms. And those move back and forth inside and around the E-shaped magnet. That creates a voltage, and the voltage then goes down the cable, and you get that microphone sound, which is really just voltage. This is how a dynamic microphone works, not a condenser microphone. A dynamic microphone is one of the most basic electronic things that we use in audio. They're indestructible. You can bounce them off the stage, you can drop them in your beer, they're still gonna work. Now, don't drop them in your beer. But they're amazing. After a nuclear war, you're going to have glass and dynamic microphones everywhere. It's amazing. But condenser microphones require voltage. But for an early PA system, and where do microphones come from, they use those dynamics. And then the sound, once transduced into voltage, turns and goes to an amplifier. That amplifier then boosts what is really a very low signal, very low voltage signal, into a much louder signal that can then power a speaker. Well, how does a speaker work? Well, it takes the voltage in and hits an E-shaped looking magnet. Inside that magnet are little copper plates that have a small little copper plate, roundy looking things, again, technical terms, that as the voltage hits the E-shaped magnet, the copper rods move back and forth from that magnetic charge. The copper rods are attached to the speaker cone, which then creates sound pressure waves in air that goes to your earballs, and you turn it into what you think sound is. Now, there's something very interesting that some of you are already realizing about microphones and speakers, and that's that they are identical, except they do the opposite thing. Speakers receive voltage and turn it into sound pressure levels. Microphones receive sound pressure levels and turn it into voltage. We've been talking about condenser microphones, but there's a whole array of kinds of microphones that we use both on set and in the studio. I've got 4 microphones that are here that sort of reflect various polar patterns and different kinds of microphones. So let's check them out right away. First of all, we've got the DR747, that custom built mic that I've had for years that I love. And this is the Saramonic NV5 cardioid condenser microphone. This is the Rode M1 dynamic cardioid microphone. And this is the Rode NTR, which is a figure 8 ribbon microphone. What? I know, it's weird, but I'll show you and you'll see why we use it, and it's cool. So let's first start. We've had a little experience with this one. This is our 747. It's a condenser, so it suffers from plosives, and it's a cardioid, which means if I go over here like this, I lose it completely. I have to be right in front of it. If I talk over it, or if I talk on off axis, I lose sibilance, and if I come too far back like this, I start losing it entirely. But that's the nature of your cardioid condenser. Now, the NV5 is also a cardioid condenser, but you can hear the radical difference between a large diaphragm condenser mic and a small diaphragm condenser mic. Small diaphragm condenser mics typically have a really sheeny, high frequency push or bump, which is really, really great if you're, wanting a lot of edge. You can hear, for those of you who understand what hertz, what being able to tell what hertz are, this is like a bump shelf from, 6K and up. There's also a 2K zone here that's probably helping. And like all condensers, plosives are a problem. And especially with small diaphragm microphones, if you thought the big diaphragm condenser was sensitive, the small diaphragm condenser is even more sensitive. But this is a wonderful sounding microphone. It is a cardioid, so as I back up, it just completely vanishes. And if I talk off axis, I lose it completely. And this one is even more narrow because it also has these slats in it, you can see here like this, that help reject sound that's coming from the sides even more than a standard large diaphragm condenser. This is the Rode M1, a completely different sound because it is a dynamic microphone. There's no electronics. It doesn't need phantom power. It doesn't need anything else. It just works. And this is one of those things that's indestructible. And it's got a really lovely sound, a nice rich quality for your voice. We use these on stage all the time. And because it's dynamic, it doesn't suffer from plosive problems. I mean, it's in there a little bit, but I'm hitting it way harder. Plosive problems. If I go to the NV5, plosive problems. I did it with the same. It's a complete world of difference. Now, they cheat with dynamic microphones, and I'll show you here. I'm just going to move this over so you can see. Kids, don't do this at home. You can unscrew this, and inside, I'm trying to do this without getting too crazy. Inside is another windshield, and this is also a windshield. The diaphragm of this is actually in this little red area here, and then the electronics come down from this. So it sort of has a built-in windscreen and another windscreen on top of it, plosives, but it still handles plosives very, very well. This is the Rode NT-R. Now, this is the only ribbon mic that we have here. Well, what's a ribbon mic? Well, these have round diaphragms that transduce the sound pressure level into voltage. This doesn't. And you can sort of see this plate right here. It's not actually a plate. It's a ribbon. And ribbons, this is a very, very sensitive ribbon, and it moves back and forth and creates the voltage the same way. Back in the old days, these were dynamic microphones. I know you're like, well, I thought that was a dynamic microphone. Well, it is a dynamic microphone with a round diaphragm. Not this one, but the old ribbons were dynamic microphones with a ribbon diaphragm. They were very, very sensitive. So sensitive that if you hit them with enough plosive power, you would tear the ribbon, much less drop them. They were also extremely noisy, but they required no phantom power, and they were very, very sensitive and very, very warm. You can hear the difference in how beautiful and warm this microphone is as compared to the 747, which has a lot more energy and it's a lot flatter frequency response. But this one is really wonderful for female vocals and male vocals that really are, or dialogue that have a lot of energy to it, and you want to warm them up. One of the most amazing things about ribbon microphones is that they are fixed figure 8. And you're like, well, what's a figure 8? Figure 8 polar pattern means that it picks up in the front and in the back the same. Now, this also has the characteristics of a condenser microphone because it requires power, which is like it's this crazy hybrid. Well, all of the new ribbon microphones, they've gotten rid of the noise issues by adding phantom power. And all the Royer Lab microphones and this one and all the new modern ribbon microphones, they have phantom power. So they're sort of this beautiful hybrid from condensers, cardioids, figure 8s, and then, of course, ribbon technology. But check out what figure 8 is like. So here's the front of it, and I'm just going to turn this around here. Here's the back of it. Notice that it sounds almost identical. Check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3. It has a little bit more warmth to the back, but watch what happens when I go to the side. If I go to the side, I'm completely dead. All you're hearing is the reflections of the room going like this. So this is a figure 8. And if you're doing podcasting, a figure 8 microphone can be a really great thing to have because in a pinch with a plosive, you can record yourself and somebody else at the same time and get them all. The hypercardioid polar pattern is the one that we use most often on set. It's extremely sensitive in the front where the diaphragm is and does everything it can to reject sound from the sides. And this is the Saramonic TM1. You can see these slats that are in it, these little, slits, slats, whatever you want to call them, The sound comes into the side of the microphone and then gets naturally phase canceled within the tube, within the body of the microphone, so that by the time it comes to this diaphragm, there's almost no sound from the back, coming to the sides, so that all that it hears is what's in the front. Super great. Now, most hypercardioid microphones have a pickup pattern directly to the rear. And as you can see in that polar pattern diagram, it's very narrow in the front, but also has a pickup pattern in the back. Saramonic microphones have a very limited pickup pattern in the back. And you're like, well, why would we want a pickup pattern in the back? Well, unfortunately, that's how they had to be designed until recently. And if you were holding a boom pole and you had to burp or something like this, and that boom mic was pointed right away from you and the rear was pointed towards you, you're going to get a really nice recording of yourself burping on accident. But the new microphones that are being made really, really reduce that. And it makes hypercardioids, shotgun microphones, boom pole mics, whatever you want to call them, one of the most useful weapons of war for creating great sound while on set. This is the TM1 from Saramonic, and it's a supercardioid microphone that does a great job of rejecting everything from the sides and give you a really great condenser sound from dead on. So if I move here, you can hear how really, really rich and nice this sounds when you're dead on. And if I start backing up, it doesn't phase out very fast. It's still really clear. You'd have to turn up the gain, obviously, but this will go out to about 30 feet, maybe even 40 feet, and you'd be in great shape. Now, to get off axis means you're dead very, very fast. If I talk into the side of it like this, it's kind of not useful at all. Check 1, 2, 3. And of course, if you want to use it for ADR, you certainly can, especially if the original dialogue was recorded on set with a supercardioid or a shotgun mic. But you need that pop filter for obvious reasons. It's still a condenser microphone. Peter Piper pick to peck, and needs that kind of thing. Now, what's interesting about the TM1 is that it also has a battery that's built in. It glows green when it's getting phantom power. Now, the next one up is a 10 dB pad, so that if you're getting anything that's super, super loud and it's overloading your electronics, then you hit that and it gets things quiet. Here, I'll just hit it for a second. You can see that all of a sudden I'm really quiet now, and I bring it back and I'm 10 dB louder. The next one up is the high frequency shelf. Much like on some of these other microphones where you want to have some control over sibilance or maybe even high frequency hiss. Right now it's off, but if I turn it on, here's sibilant, sibilant, sibilant off, sibilant, sibilant, sibilant on, sibilant, sibilant, sibilant off, sibilant, sibilant, sibilant on. It's a really strong boost of about 6K and up or so. Really, really great when you have to use Foley. And then the last button up here is your low frequency roll off or your high pass filter. They're both the same. And it cuts out pretty much everything from 120 hertz and down, which, if you want a really big bass frequency voice, you don't want to have this on. But if you're out and it's on a boom pole and it's rattling around and there's air conditioning, you definitely want to have this on. And in my voice, you can definitely hear the low frequencies being cut off with it on, and then the low frequencies being returned with it off. This is the TM7, which is their big sort of hypercardioid microphone. It's even more focused in the direction that you point it. It has the same kind of buttons that the TM1 had, except it has an extra low frequency cutoff. So I'm going to, here we go, turn on the high shelf. It's sibilant, 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 sibilant. It's really, really nice and sheeny. And then here is the first level of low frequency cutoff here. Check 1, 2, 1, 2. And then the next one here. Check 1, 2, 1, 2. It's a little more subtle, this upper one. It's like I think it's from 100 hertz and down. And then this one is from about 140 hertz and down for really, really cutting it off. This one, because it's longer, cuts off more low frequencies that might come from the side. The longer a shotgun microphone is, the more able it is to, shred those low frequencies. So you can see, if I speak to the low here, or to the side here, how much more low frequencies are being cut off from my voice. Check 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then if I use the TM1, sibilant, sibilant, check 1, 2, 3, sibilant, check 1, 2, 3, you can see that there are more low frequencies that are getting into this than from the side than there were from, again, the TM7. Sibilant, sibilant, 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. For those of you who are doing ENG or you have to record action and you just don't have time to set up audio, in a nice dual system way, you have to use a built-in camera mic. And obviously, I don't think anybody would disagree with me that built-in camera mics sound like crap. And so the easy answer is buying a microphone like this that attaches to the mic, you can run it into the camera, and you get a much better solution. Ideally, that microphone is a hypercardioid, a very narrow polar pattern that's able to reject what's going on the sides around you and still get the target that you're trying to record. But here on Cinema Sound, I'm always saying you want to have the microphone as near to the noise hole as possible, and of course pointed to the noise hole. And when you put a microphone on camera, that's almost impossible to do. And if you're outside of 16 feet, if you're farther away than 16 feet, you're going to create all kinds of problems for yourself in post-production, which we'll talk about in future chapters. The other thing is that when you have a microphone on camera, you have the compounded issue of the camera noise being directly acoustically coupled to the microphone that you're trying to get really nice audio on. And that includes everything from, focus, lens winds to zoom. I mean, listen to this. This is a C100. That's pretty strong, and I'm not yanking on that very hard. Much less if you're using a RED camera. And some of you RED users are going to be like, oh, well, but if the fans turn off when we go into record. I'm not talking about when it's in record. I'm talking about that brutal whine that goes on while you're just recording. And imagine being on an 18 millimeter and up close to a camera. Up too close to your actress, and all of a sudden it's, and we in post have to manage that, and it's a total drag. Look, this is way better than the built-in camera mic on any camera. The issue is that if you have to run your on-camera mic into the camera, well, the camera's ability to record is usually limited to 48 kilohertz and 16-bit or worse with really bad analog to digital converters too. So you're going to get a lot of shh on top of, the sound that you're going to get with all the camera noise and everything else. So you'd better have a lot of facility at using Adobe Audition denoise or iZotope RX to be able to clean that up. Otherwise, all this is really going to be is just a nice reference, and you're going to be in ADR the rest of the time. So let me just say this in the clear. If you're an ENG and you're doing action, look, I get it. You got to have something like this. And get yourself a nice microphone. This is the Saramonic V-Mic Pro. But if you're not, do everything you can to run the audio from your mixer to the camera. Don't use an on-camera mic as reference. Get that reference from the mixer itself. Do it wirelessly, with a wire, whatever you got to do, because that's going to be way cleaner than getting any kind of on-camera mic that you would use. This is the Saramonic SRM3. It's a super compact on-camera microphone that's a hypercardioid. It has an on-off switch powered by a AAA battery. It has a low-cut filter. It has another headphone output. It has a TRS 3.5 millimeter cable that comes out that'll go right into your camera for line level, and it has a 3.5 millimeter input for another microphone, which is super dope. It's a hypercardioid, so if I pull this back here, you can see this really cute little plastic body for a really nice diaphragm, and it has the slots for a hypercardioid that you would expect, and it does a really good job of rejecting high frequencies from the side so that I can get a really kind of hyped up, intense dialogue sound with how the frequency plot was made for this microphone, both close and far away if I don't get off camera too much, and does a good job of rejecting everything that's going on in the room. So if you're doing ENG or action and you really need a really high value but yet really small and light microphone, the SRM3 is great. All right, in omnidirectional polar pattern means that it picks up everywhere, left, right, up, down, back, forwards, all kinds of places, and it has no proximity effect. Now, right now we have the DR747 set up in an omni polar pattern. That means I can get right close to it like we did before, but I can also be here. I can move over here. I can even talk to it from the top. Now, of course, it has a huge tube diaphragm, so if I talk to it under like this, you get a lot of the reflection off of the mic body, and of course it's blocking. But anywhere else around, you're good. And you retain a certain amount of that cardioid distance. So the minute I pull back here, it starts cutting down the sound quite a bit. So it's super, super useful. And again, no proximity effect. As I get closer, the bass frequencies are not enhanced. Again, obviously I get louder, but there's no bass boost. Now my lavalier, just like most of your lavaliers, also are omnidirectional. There's very few lavaliers that are, cardioid or hypercardioid, unless you have a Countryman or something like this. So lavaliers are great because you can put them anywhere on your person. You can put them here, here, here. You can hide them in your hair, which we'll show you about later. And it's still going to do a great job of picking up the sound from your noise hole. In fact, right now I'm wearing the Saramonic V-Mic Link 5. This is their 5.8 gigahertz solution to what the FCC is doing, and we'll talk about that later too. Sounds great, 40 meters, and you're in great shape. So let me just pull this off for a second here without blowing us up. So here's the lav, and it's much like every other lav. It has a really great frequency response because it has to get over the chin shadow of most people's chin when it's here. But I can talk to it here, here, I can talk here, right into the cable. It still sounds great. Here, anywhere else, and again, no proximity effect at all. One of the things about lavaliers is people think, oh, I'm wearing a lav, so I won't hear much of the room or anything that's noisy. I won't get any of that. Well, the fact is lavaliers are the bad choice for using in loud environments because they are omnidirectional and they pick up from all over the place. We really don't want to use lavaliers if it's super noisy. That's when you want to use a shotgun one or some other kind of microphone that's great at rejecting noise that's, out in the world. Now, the reason that you use them if you have to is because they are so close to the noise hole, and that means you get to turn down the mic pre, which also turns down the ambient noise. But as a rule, omnidirectional microphones are not what you want to use to reject what's happening out in the room. I just want to show you about the Smart Mixer from Saramonic. It's one of the smartest things that they've made. As you can see, my iPhone 7 Plus fits into this bracket that comes with it. There's also a handle here that you can grab, and since the iPhone 7 has built-in stabilization, it makes moving your camera around super nice, and any phone will fit in here. I mean, case notwithstanding, obviously. But what's amazing, the best part about it, is what happens up here in professional audio land. First of all, it comes with this cold shoe that you don't even have to mount on here. You can mount it on a regular camera if you want. But it comes with these two cardioid condenser microphones. This one's left and this one's right. You can position them any way you want. You can also pull them out and put other microphones in there if you want that have 3.5 millimeter capability. Then it has a mini XLR input that also has phantom power selectable here. Of course, you've got the gain reduction and attenuation and boosting there. And then the ability, if you have an Android phone, to be able to listen back to the video that you're making. So we're shooting this video here. Hi. Where is it? Hey. But now if I wanted to play it back on an Android, I could hit that switch and listen back through, because also I have line out and then the Android special headphone or the special playback record out that goes into your phone, just like where your headphone goes. And it's super awesome. But what I really want to show you is how cool these microphones are. So I'm always talking about mono compatibility and how whatever you record in stereo, no matter how cool it may sound in wide stereo, if it's not mono compatible, you're dead meat, right? Your mix is going to suffer big time. So I'm just going to turn this so you can kind of hear in stereo what's happening. So typically they say, put them at 45 degrees like this. And of course you can position them up if you want, but for now that doesn't make any sense for me. Now you can point them straight at me like this. And of course, they're condensers, so you're going to have a lot of plosives. But this is for kind of recording larger, maybe events or something like this, or maybe ambiances in general. So this would be mono, and of course it's perfectly mono compatible. I can turn it really wide and check 1, 2, and get this really awesome stereo field, left, right, like this, and it's all mono compatible. You don't hear, any phasing or sound moving up and down. Of course, you can turn it around and just get the room, big deal. And then somewhere even in close, like this, so that they're more narrow, check 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, and they sound fantastic. They're really, really great. No mono incompatibility at all. So the Smart Mixer, by the way, if you don't want the phone aspect of it, also comes in just the mixer itself, which is called the CA mixer. I call it the California mixer. They don't like that, but and it's really, really cool. So this is the Smart Mixer, which comes with the phone part, and the CA mixer is this without the phone part. If you have one of these, come on to the cinemasound.com forum or visit us on the secret CinemaSound Facebook booth. That's great. Forum group. They're called groups on Facebook. And tell us what you think. Tell us how you're using them. We'd love to see more about how you're applying them, how you're connecting them to your cameras if you're using that. Of course, because you can connect these to your cameras, not just your phones. One of the things we have to be careful about with condenser microphones is how sensitive they are. And while we love them being so sensitive, they're really susceptible to any kind of wind noise, not just plosives. Here's the Saramonic TM1. Plosives, Peter Piper picked up. I mean, it's just, you can't possibly use it open. But also, even if you're indoors dealing with air conditioning and even people walking by, I'm just making wind with my hand, it'll ruin a take just having that wind kind of sound. And, while they do a great job of rejecting everything else, there's no condenser around that can reject wind very well at all. So with nearly every microphone that's sold, including shotguns, you have some kind of built-in windscreen that comes with it. I call it built-in. It's really just included. And this is the one for the TM7 that comes built-in, there it is again, in the box. So let's see how this does. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. It actually does really well. Most built-in or included windscreens don't do that great of a job, and really they're not even worth putting in the box. But something that Saramonic does with these screens really makes it dense, and you don't lose very many frequencies by putting it on. Peter Piper picked a peck. It's really, really nice and good. Now here is the TM1 again. I'm going to put on this, which is called a dead cat. Yes, I'm sorry, ladies. We call it dead cat. And it's sort of a hyper version of the built-in included windscreen. Let's check it out. It's going to make a funny noise. Sort of like a lion. And it's this fuzzy action keeps the wind from being able to attack the microphone diaphragm in any particular way and diffuses it across its body. Peter Piper picked a peck. It's almost as good as having a pop filter in, except, obviously it looks way cooler. And it helps protect from general wind. And it's really, really useful. Plus, it looks really cool. And no production's a professional production until someone sees one of these on a boom pole on set. Right? It's like, oh, well, it's not very professional until you see a dead cat or something like this. So, to sum up, basically, you need to have some kind of wind shredding device on every microphone that's a shotgun, whether you use it inside or outside, because you're going to get wind somewhere and it's going to ruin your takes without one of these things on your microphones. Let's see how we do. We're going to take this Bear TM7 and see if we can record the noise of a fan. And I know you're like, well, why wouldn't you just put it behind the fan and record the back? Well, yes, of course we could, but we're trying to see how it does with wind. And in this case, a fan's about a 30 to 40 mile an hour wind, this box fan. So let's see how it goes. We're going to put it on high and see. I can't really even get it close to pointing at the fan. In fact, the wind coming sideways through these little slits here are also causing wind noise. So obviously, we have to have something on this microphone to protect it from the wind noise. All right, here it is with the built-in or included windscreen. Typically, these don't do very well, but there's something about these Saramonic ones. I really don't know what it is. They seem to work very, very well. Let's see how it does with a 40 mile an hour wind. That's pretty amazing for just a free included windscreen. I mean, I'm almost all the way up against the grill. You're hearing the chopping of the blades as they come through the air. That's what that sound is like. It's really, really amazing. And I'm amazed that this simple windscreen can do such a good job without reducing too many high frequencies. Let's try it with a dead cat. All right, so with a dead cat. Now, with any kind of dead cat like this where there's fuzz, you're going to lose some high frequencies, but you can always return them with an EQ in post. Let's see how we do. It does really well. There's no low rumble of any kind. You do hear a little buzzing because of the fan, the wind actually mashing on these hair, the fur, if you will, of the cat. But as far as low rumble goes, there's nothing. And I can get almost all the way up to the grill of this fan. Super awesome. Let's see what happens in a blimp. With a blimp, so the microphone is in this structure, and I don't know why they call them blimps. They're really like Zeppelins. They've got a hard case on the inside and cloth on the outside. I mean, this is really a Zeppelin, but it does a great job of keeping the high frequencies from being attenuated that dead cats and dead, other things with fuzziness have. but also protect the microphone. Let's see how it does against a 40-mile-an-hour fan wind. That's pretty good, really good. Almost no wind noise, a little low rumble, but one of the nice things about this particular, and it's incredibly inexpensive, I bought it on Amazon, this blimp, is that the exoskeleton or the frame is on the inside. Sometimes blimps that have frame on the outside, the wind actually makes a noise across the skin of it, but because they've wisely put the cloth on the outside, you don't have any of that sound happening. And I'm almost all the way up against a grill, and again, no high frequency loss. Let's try it with a big dead cat. That is, we're going to put a dead cat over this blimp. All right, big dead cat on top of a blimp. Let's see how that does. I mean, I have this up against the grill of the fan. That's how good it is. And I'm in the middle of the wind of the fan, and you can still hear me perfectly. In fact, it's so good you can hear the blades chopping through the air. And that this is, 30, 40 mile an hour wind. This is pretty amazing. Not only can it record directly into the fan without any trouble, but you have incredible rejection. That's pretty dope. And now for those of you who think you want to take your microphones and hang them out an 80-mile-an-hour window, we're going to test these with this, a blow dryer. Yeah, it's about 80 to 90 miles an hour worth of wind. No, we're not using the heat setting. So let's see what happens with a bare microphone. I can't even get it anywhere near this. I mean, I'm basically off axis by like 10 degrees. So we absolutely can't have this out in an 80-mile-an-hour wind. Let's try with the built-in included windscreen. Well, a whole lot better than the regular non-screened microphone, right? But there's still a lot of rumble. Let's try with a dead cat. That works really, really well. Almost no wind interference of any kind. Let's try it with a blimp. Blimp just really not set up to be able to do that kind of power. It's really great up to about 40 miles an hour, but this is way too much. Let's try it with a big dead cat. I mean, I'm right up on the grill of the hairdryer. That's how great this is. And having this fuzz, even whether it's a dead cat or a big dead cat that goes over a blimp like this, really gives high wind a shred and protects your hypercardioid or any kind of condenser microphone. So it's so awesome to be able to actually put these wind shredders under real duress. Now look, you don't be hanging a microphone out of a window at 80 miles an hour and trying to record anything. First of all, it's dangerous and that's crazy. And if you do it, don't tell me about it. But you can see the difference. And it's important to be able to know that your wind shredding devices can reject wind on a supercardioid, hypercardioid, or a shotgun mic, because even indoors, if you get it next to an air conditioning duct or a big blow of wind from the ceiling, your takes are going to be ruined and you won't even know why. You're like, whoa, what happened? But with the right wind shredding device, you can get that handled and not have to be in ADR in post. So this chapter's been a cool overview of all kinds of different types of microphones. The next chapter, we're going into lavaliers and wireless and some other cool stuff. We'll see you on set.